Hi, friends. Welcome back to Stay Anchored Kids. Last time, we learned how Moses fled from Egypt after killing an Egyptian who was beating one of the Hebrew slaves. For 40 years, Moses lived in the land of Midian. He became a shepherd, got married, had a family, and probably thought that his days of doing anything important were over. But today, everything is about to change. Now, one day, Moses was leading his sheep near a mountain called Horeb. It probably seemed like an ordinary day. He had likely walked these same hills hundreds of times before. But God often does extraordinary things on ordinary days. As Moses was watching the sheep, something caught his eye. There was a bush on fire. Now, that wasn't the strange part. Bushes in the desert could catch fire. The strange part was this. The bush wasn't burning up. The flames kept burning, but the bush wasn't being destroyed. Moses thought, I have to go see this. As he walked closer, something even more amazing happened. God called out to Moses from the bush. Moses, Moses. Can you imagine hearing your name called from a burning bush? Moses answered, Here I am. Then God said, Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, because the place you are standing is holy ground. Why did Moses have to take off his sandals? Not because the ground itself was magical, but because God's holy presence was there. Holy means completely pure, completely perfect, and completely set apart from everything sinful. God is unlike anyone else. He is perfectly good, perfectly righteous, perfectly loving, perfectly just. Then God introduced himself. He said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. In other words, God was reminding Moses, I am the same God who made promises to your ancestors, and I haven't forgotten those promises. Then God told Moses something wonderful. He said, I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. I know what they are going through. Think about that. For hundreds of years, God's people had been slaves. Maybe they wondered if God had forgotten them. But he hadn't. God saw every tear. He heard every prayer. He knew every hardship. And now the time had come to rescue them. Then God said something Moses never expected. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt. Can you imagine Moses' reaction? Me? You want me to go back to Egypt? Remember, Moses had been gone for 40 years. He wasn't the confident prince he once was. He was an 80-year-old shepherd. He probably thought, God, you've picked the wrong person. Now here's today's big question. Why does God sometimes choose ordinary people to do extraordinary things? Because when God works through ordinary people, everyone knows the power comes from him. If Moses had rescued Israel by his own strength, people might have praised Moses. Instead, God was going to work in such an amazing way that everyone would know he alone deserved the glory. And God still works that way today. He often chooses ordinary people who are willing to trust him. Now Moses had another question. He asked, If the Israelites ask who sent me, what should I tell them? God answered with one of the most important names in the entire Bible. He said, I am who I am. What does that mean? It means God depends on no one. Everything else in the universe depends on something. Plants need sunlight. Fish need water. People need food and air. But God needs nothing. He has always existed. He will always exist. He never changes. He is completely self-sufficient. Later, Jesus would use this same title to describe himself, showing that he is God. That's one of the reasons Christians believe Jesus is much more than just a good teacher. He is the eternal Son of God. Now, some people ask, why doesn't God just solve every problem himself without using people? Sometimes he does act directly, but often God chooses to work through his people. He invites us to be a part of what he's doing. That's a privilege. And it's exactly what he was doing with Moses. Before we finish today, remember this truth. God doesn't call people because they're perfect. He calls them because he is powerful. Moses felt weak, but God was strong. And that's all Moses really needed. All right, friends, thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, we're going to see Moses try to argue with God and explain why he thinks someone else would be a better choice. Before you go, here's today's challenge. Think about this question or ask your parents or someone you trust. Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough to do something God wanted you to do? And let's finish with a quick prayer. God, thank you that you see us, know us, and call us according to your purposes. Help us trust that you can use ordinary people to do extraordinary things for your glory. Amen. See you next time, friends.